In this session, we're going to have a look at creating our animated scene from our brief, A Lonely Man Waiting to Meet Someone. And we're going to use Sequencer for this. So the first thing we're actually going to do is close the Sequencer window, if you've got it open. Come back to our scene, and we're going to create a new level sequence. Now, it's very important to keep your Unreal project organized. So generally, you want to create level sequences inside of content, cinematics, sequences. Now, this is just going to make it easier for you to come back and always find it, but also if you ever work with other people, this is where they're going to expect them to be. So to create a new asset in Unreal, specifically a level sequence, we can right-click anywhere in this blank area, and we get a list of all sorts of different assets to create. You can go up here to where it says animation, hover over there, and go over to level sequence, and you can left-click that. Another way to do that is to actually right-click and type L for level sequence, and at the top here, just click in here and continue typing level sequence, and it should come up right there. So after we've created it, we've got to give it a name. Now, naming conventions are also important if you're working as part of a team, or even for yourself to come back and keep track of what you're working on. So let's call this shot_01 and hit enter. Now, it's created the asset, but it hasn't opened it. So we're going to double click this like we did before with the example, and we get our sequencer window, but this one has no tracks in it. So we're going to populate those. So the first thing you want to do is find your camera. So I'm going to right click in my viewport, come out a bit, and I know my camera is there pointing at the mannequin. So I'm going to click that. Now we need to add it to Sequencer, and you can do this in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to show you the most common and the most helpful. Over in our outliner, after we've clicked it, we can see it right here. So you can left click it right there and drag it in onto this left section and let go. And that's actually going to automatically create a camera cuts track for you and some relevant camera tracks below. It's also made us pilot the camera. So we're actually happy with the placement of the camera. So we don't want to be piloting it right now. So we can go over here like we showed before and left click to unlock the camera from the viewport, or we can go up to this ejection button and hit that. So now that I've ejected from the camera, I'm going to look through the camera cuts track instead. This way I won't accidentally move and change the camera. So after clicking that camera icon, I'm going to have a look at adding this character into Sequencer 2 because I want that animation playing like we'd set up before. So to do that, I'm going to left click on our character, and like I showed before, we could left click and drag in, but let's try something else instead. We can go over here to where it says plus track. I'm going to click that, and we get a whole bunch of options. And here's where you'll find things like the camera cut track, as well as a bunch of others we don't need to use right now. So one of the most common ones you're going to use is this actor to sequence. And this is how you get an asset, commonly referred to as an actor, into Sequencer. Now it presents you with this little outliner here, which has, just like the top right, a list of all the assets in the scene. But thankfully, because we've left clicked our mannequin, he's come up right up the top here. So I can just click add sitting mannequin up the top, and I don't need to search through that list. So I've added him, and you'll notice it's automatically added a transform track, just like it did for the camera. Now this is actually very important because it means when I'm creating a shot like this, I can guarantee that every time I open this shot, this actor is going to be in the same place. It's not as apparent right now because we're just working with 1 or 2 shots, but once we start combining them together, it's going to become really important. So make sure that transform track's always there. For some assets, it won't automatically add it. So for example, this cradle, I'm going to click plus track, actor to sequence, and search cradle. And it comes up there even without me clicking on it. So I'm going to click OK. And you'll notice this one, unlike the mannequin, came in with absolutely no tracks. Now this could be an issue because if another shot moves this cradle, then when I reopen this shot, it's not going to be in the same position. So to make sure that doesn't happen, we're going to hit plus track, transform. And that just means that its current position and rotation are all saved so that every time we open this shot, it's in the same position we expect it to be in. Now let's go back to our mannequin and let's look at adding an animation. So we're going to add our animation like we did last time. With plus animation, we're going to search for our sitting mannequin animation. Now this time you'll notice because I had my time slider at frame 0, it actually added it from frame 0 onwards. So if I was to play, there's no abrupt jump. It starts exactly at the start of the shot. So I also want animation to be playing on my cradle, so when I cut back and forth, continuity is kept. But right now it's not playing. So we're going to have to add that animation track. We do that by clicking the plus track right here next to where it says BP_Newton's cradle. We click the plus track. We hit animation and we choose anim_cradle_loop. That's the only one there. Now I've moved my time slider again, so it's not starting until frame 100. So I'm going to hover over until I get this 4-pointed arrow, and then I'm going to left click and drag it along to the start, and it's going to snap there. And then I'm going to hover over the end until I get the 2-directional arrow and drag it out to loop it. So now if I go back to the start and hit spacebar, we've got our cradle playing and we've got our character nervously waiting. So we've just covered a lot in a very short amount of time. Don't be worried if this isn't sticking just yet. This will take a while for you to fully understand and appreciate. We've covered how to create a sequence, how to add assets to that sequence, the default tracks they come with, and how to add extra tracks on top of that. But how do we go about adding this shot to our last shot? So say I wanted to start my film with a shot like our example shot, and then cut into a shot like this one to kind of accentuate that feeling of waiting. How do we go about that? We're going to cover that in the next session with master sequences.